Started, Carmen? Pardon? Your proposal.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today. My name is Tom Flood. I'm your 2024-2025 Timmins Chamber President and an investment advisor at RBC Wealth Management. I'd like to welcome you all to the session on planning and building from the Business Building Permit Series hosted by the Chamber. Please join me in taking a moment to reflect that we recognize that we find ourselves on the lands of Ontogami First Nation in Treaty 9 territory. As we gather here today to discuss land sales and development, let us remember the importance of collaboration and respect for our Indigenous communities. By working together with Indigenous communities, we can ensure that our projects are sustainable, inclusive, and contribute to the overall well-being of the region. I'd like to welcome our presenters today from the City of Timmins, Cindy Welsh, Manager of Planning, and Esa Saarela, Chief Building Officer, who will be discussing the city's planning and building processes. Understanding the city's planning and building process can provide valuable opportunities to our members to expand their operations, develop new projects, and contribute to the growth of our community. There will be an opportunity to ask questions. Please raise your hand or submit your questions in the chat box. We kindly ask that you remain muted until called upon during our Q&A portion of the session. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Chamber's YouTube channel. I'll now invite Cindy and Esa to provide some welcome remarks and discuss the process.
Thank you very much. Just for the audience, Carmen will be flipping through the slides. So we've entitled this presentation today called Getting to Yes Faster. And it's the title is a result of what we heard at the budget presentation that the Chamber presented a few weeks ago. There seems to be some issues or perceived issues in the general public that planning and building divisions put a little bit of a hindrance up to development, but this presentation will hopefully alleviate some of those issues that were presented and just let Chamber members know what we do at our end to help facilitate you getting to yes faster. So Carmen, if you could flip to the next slide. So this is just a cartoon that I found. It says, before you begin, I'd like to thank you for coming in early to do this on such short notice. And these are some of, we understand at the city that you as the business community like to get things done on short notice, but we also have timelines that we need to meet as well. So if you could just flip to the next slide. So one thing we'd like members to do is plan ahead. Plan your project with processing times in mind and start the application process well in advance of your project start date. And we recommend starting the process 6 to 12 months ahead of your start date. Now, we understand that this may not always be possible and that you may not even know what you're doing tomorrow. As some of us, we lead busy lives, we don't. But if you know that you're going to be working on a major project, we always say start the process early. And we also like to comment that there may be potential delays that you did not anticipate. So next slide, please. So you can see here that, this lady is asking a barman if he's seen her cocktail napkin with her plan in it. And to be quite frank, we've had plans come in on the back of beer cases. Saw that once, on the back of a napkin once, and a few other pieces of paper that, really don't help us as professionals move forward. So just wanted to throw this slide in here as well. So on the next slide, preparation is key. So, prepare your application methodically and ensure all required documentation is complete and accurate prior to your submission. If you're unsure what is required, you can always pre-consult with the city's growth and infrastructure staff, and that would mainly be building and planning. And if your documentation is incomplete, this could lead to city processing delays. So if you're going to provide a site plan or building permits that are incomplete, that will put, it will cause delays in the process. And just so that members know, there are legislative timelines that staff need to meet, but these only begin with a complete application. So even if you come to the counter and drop off an application and staff review it and realize the site plan is incorrect or there's missing information on the application, that application is not deemed complete and the clock does not start to tick until it is deemed complete. And that's key. So even though, your members might think, well, I've submitted it to the city, there's information that's still, if there's information that's still relevant, we can't start the clock. Next slide, please. Do you have planning permission for the extra shoe? We don't advocate people living in shoes as houses, but if somebody came in with a development, it would be rather unique. But the meaning of the slide is to just talk with planning to see whether or not what your proposal does fit in with the City of Timmins zoning bylaw. And the next slide, please. So leading into that, you should familiarize yourself with the City of Timmins zoning bylaw, as there may be provisions that are applicable to your project. And you can find the City of Timmins zoning bylaw on the city's website. And you can see the steps to actually get to the City of Timmins zoning bylaw. And there may be potential issues relating to provisions such as setbacks, height restrictions, or lot coverage that may need to be addressed through Planning Act applications prior to approval. And an example of this may be a minor variance. A minor variance may be required, or this is an application that is not dealt with through the Planning Act, but there was an instance in the downtown core that a development needed to apply for an encroachment bylaw because the property, a section of the development was encroaching on City of Timmins sidewalk, and council needed to deal with an encroachment bylaw for that particular application. So these are things that, as the business community, there may be additional approvals that are required. So next slide, please. Now, I know a lot of people think that the City of Timmins planning department and building department aren't there to help, but that is actually not the case. If you go to the next slide. Communications is key. So with both city planning and building division staff, we're there to help. We're public servants and we're there to serve the public. So communications is one thing that I would really like to stress here. The other issue that I need to stress is that there may be additional staff within the city that need to be consulted. In engineering, the engineering department is one area that may need to be consulted if there are issues with servicing. Public works may need to be consulted if the business that is being developed needs access off of a municipal road and a new entrance is required. So public works would be asked about or asked to comment on that. So, that's why we're saying communication is key. And be proactive if you have questions or concerns that need answers. By contacting city staff prior to submitting your application, which helps with processing times and reduces delays. As I mentioned earlier, your application is not deemed complete unless all of the information is there. So if you do not have all of the information on your application or you don't know what to include, give the city a call and we'll help with that information. That way your application can move through the process in a timely fashion. And also the last bullet point on this page says staff can assist in providing additional information or clarification relating to applications which can help prevent delays. So as public servants, we're there to help and to educate members how to move through this process. However, and you see this gentleman sitting here and he's got a questioning look on his face. Next slide, please. There may be times when members of the business community, if you're unsure, you may need to engage with professionals with a professional who is well versed in the permitting process. Basically, there are some times that, hiring a consultant will help you get through the permitting process, especially if it's a more complicated development application. And these professionals that work in the private sector, they do work hand in hand with planning and building and the engineering department. And so they can assist with guidance and support through the application process. They know the application process as well. And they can also make sure that your documentation meets the requirements that is needed to help avoid delays in the permitting process. Next slide, please. So there is some additional information available on the City of Timmins website, and this includes for the new e-permitting process for building permits that Esa will touch upon that has just been launched by the City of Timmins. All Planning Act applications, including zoning bylaw applications, minor variance and consent, and site plan control applications, they're all available on the City of Timmins website as well. And you can see the steps that are there to actually get to the city's website so that those applications can be downloaded. The last slide has our contact information on it. But what I'll do now is I'll turn it over to Esa and you can provide additional comments relating to the information that's been provided.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity to be involved in this today. Yeah, so I just quickly drafted up a few points. I didn't come up with a PowerPoint because I knew that I'd be pretty well saying the same thing as Cindy, just from a different angle. Yeah, I just wanted to first reiterate that, yes, so if you go to our City of Timmins website that Cindy had indicated, last slide, there is a section there that tells you what kind of plans are required. Now, it's more intended for a smaller residential project, but basically the same rationale is there for whether it's a commercial project, large, small, residential. We typically need 2 sets of plans, which are full-size hard copy drawings. I guess at this point I could talk about the online permitting that we just started. The online permitting is working rather well. Have a few glitches here and there. But the one thing that I have to say is that it works fine for the applications that are being received, but because we're still requiring paper copies, we can't accept electronic submissions at this time yet. Hopefully somewhere down the road we will, but I'm not sure when that day will come. So also, when we're dealing with the permitting process, in my world, I have to look at other applicable laws. So Cindy kind of touched upon it, but in my world, it gets a little bit more elaborate where we have to look at different agencies, different governments. So obviously, she already talked about, we know with planning and zoning, that's key. Engineering, the servicing. You may require Park Point Health Unit approval for, say, on-site sewage systems, which are septic systems. You got all these various different reports that may be required in larger commercial projects, commercial, industrial, institutional projects. We would always typically ask for some sort of form of a soils investigation through a geotech report or any other type of engineering reports. I touched upon all the different ministries that you may have to contact. You got your Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Natural Resources, et cetera, all the various different ministries. And at times, let's say you're doing a tenant fit up at the Timmins Square, for example, well, then we would need authorization from the owner just telling us that it's okay for us to release the building permit. So again, that's just one of these little unique things that we go through. And as Cindy said, and I can't say this enough, plan ahead. I know there's different size projects. When Cindy alluded to the timelines of 6 to 12 months, yeah, and that's intended for the larger projects. But sometimes you can get delays that long, even for a smaller project, but plan ahead. I said in here, like this perfect time of year right now, use the winter months to plan for future projects during that you want to maybe say do next summer. I can't say enough about taking advantage of the pre-consultation process. I've got to say that when Cindy came on board here at the city 15, 14 years ago, she also brought the concept of pre-consultation meetings, as well as we have what we call our development review committee as well. I think that helps developers, builders, planners out there immensely through the process. So we get all the multiple departments together, building, fire, planning, public works, engineering, yeah, I kind of forgot that. And you get to hear from all the different departments what their concerns might be. So I can't stress that enough, that use that to your advantage for anybody out there who's planning a project. And I also wrote in here about hiring professionals for projects. I know Carmen, when she was asking me to do a PowerPoint, I was saying, well, my PowerPoints can be basically the same as Cindy's, except for just the fact that through the building code, it elaborates on certain aspects. The one thing that she touched upon that I know that the members out there may have questions about is renovating existing buildings. Every situation is unique, depending on the nature of the renovation. So it may involve hiring professionals, may not involve hiring professionals, depending again on the size, but it's always best to consult with us. If you're proposing to do something to a building, we'll be glad to assist you in, giving you the required information is what you might need to move forward. Because renovating buildings is not the easiest thing. They're not. You can't use the building code to every project. It varies, right, for the different type of renovation that's happening. And again, just to talk about the different timelines, as Cindy has mandated through legislation under the Planning Act for timelines, we also have timelines. For example, a small permit like a shed or a deck, garage, through the government, we're mandated 5 business days to process the permit if it's a complete application. And again, if it doesn't require other approvals, let's say committee of adjustment or workman health unit or something like that. If it's a straightforward application that's deemed complete, 5 days. Same thing for a house now, it's 10 days. If it's a complete application, we have 10 days to issue it. And then it gets a little bit more elaborate where you get 15 days for a smaller commercial project, 20 days for a larger commercial project, or what we call a post-disaster complex building. So say hospital or any type of structure like that. Now, having said that, I've told this to mayor and council many times that it's always been our policy here at the city to definitely beat those timelines when we can. So we can't stress enough the fact that we need complete applications to be able to do that. And again, having said that, when we're talking about larger commercial projects, so I'll say the Home Depots, the Walmarts of the world, those type of places, projects, we, through the city, will always, or through the building part, will always encourage you to submit drawings for review. And while it's going through the process through planning, it may or may not require council approval. We'd like to have our review complete before you actually seek all the other approvals or obtain the approvals. So yeah, we're more than willing to work with the community, with developers to assist in getting these projects going. There's also conditional permits have been issued in the past also for larger projects to enable them to get going. That alone, that's an agreement between the developer, the proponent, and the city. And it's something we don't take lightly. If we're quite comfortable that all approvals will be obtained for that project, we may issue the permit before we actually get the permit approvals. So yeah, I think that's about it. That's what I had kind of just wanted to jump on as to what Cindy was saying. Again, as Cindy said, we are public servants. We're here to work for the public. And we are here to help, believe it or not.
Just a couple of comments to piggyback on what Esa said. When Esa commented on the pre-consultation, we can't stress that enough. And that process is in place so that everybody around the table knows what is required for the application to move forward.
Yeah.
And we can't stress the fact of complete applications. As I mentioned, we work under timelines, but if the application's not complete, then those timelines don't kick in. We need all of that information to be able to process that application. And then Esa also talked about plans and, we require all that or the required information on plans as well. And, I alluded to that woman who drew her plan on the back of a napkin, but the napkins aren't large enough to probably be able to draw out what we need. So, yeah.
The beer carton is good though. It's colorful, but it's a little hard to photocopy.
I thought you were gonna hold up a napkin over there and say, well, we can get all this on here. But no, like, yeah, in all seriousness, we require a lot more information to be able to move your application through the process in a timely manner. And one thing that I'd like to stress too, that Esa touched on is that we normally exceed the timelines that the province has in place. And it's because of the collaborative nature that we've got within the city. And also with the fact that we stress to our staff that we are public servants and that we're here to serve the public and the business community. And that's one of our main roles. So a lot of times, there might be issues that are unforeseen that could stop an application moving forward. But if you've come in and talked to us, we can provide you with a list of what you need to have a complete application. If you need other approvals, such as Esa touched upon it, like the Porcupine Health Unit, they're a separate agency, so they need to do their approvals under their legislation. And mind you, we work in tandem with them, but they have their own set of rules that they need to work under. Also, the other item that, there's certain sections of the city that are within the source water protection area, and there may be approvals that are required if the development is within a source water protection area, but that's something that staff will be able to advise the business community on, like your members on, when they come in to see us. Like our role is to get that development up and running as quickly as possible, but doing it the right way. So it might seem it's like a daunting task. And if it is a bigger project, there are professionals that Esa requires be brought on board, like for geotech work and geotechnical work and architectural work. But we're there to help guide you through the process as well. But we need some help from the business community, what I'm basically saying is that we need to have complete applications, right? We need to be able to work in tandem with the business community in order to make sure that the process goes smoothly for chamber members that want to develop. So, yeah, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming in here. It shows that you're taking our concerns seriously. And
Definitely.
and we appreciate it. It's a step in the right direction by all means, because sometimes it is just a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, right? And this truly does show that you guys do care that there are concerns out there. And the concerns are coming from, astute members. It's not, I know when I was at the council chamber, there was a comment made that maybe this is coming from the few percent that might be trying to get things through, but our members, we do hold our members to a high standard, and we do vet their concerns and their complaints, and some of these did come from, business members that are trying to follow the process and, trying to do the right things, and they still have those concerns. However, the information you provided today is very useful, and that pre-consultation, I think, it would be a very useful tool to a lot of the concerns I heard through the chamber heads. But again, thank you so much for taking this seriously and coming in and going over the information with us. I think I'll first off go to the chat box. I can't see it, Carmen, but is there any questions in the chat box? If not, I have a few here.
There aren't any. Does anyone want to put their hand up and unmute and ask a question before we go through some of the ones that were submitted in advance? Anybody?
Who wants to put their hand up first thing in the morning?
Go ahead, Tom.
Good coffee. Yeah, so I've got a couple here that were submitted in advance, so we can go through them. So can you elaborate on the tools and platforms currently used to manage internal workflows and how businesses can gain visibility into the status of their permit or application submissions throughout the process?
So there are. Okay, can you repeat that again? Because
So
you're
basically, is there a way for a business member to go online or through some sort of platform to see where their permit?
no, not at this time.
Okay.
But that being said, the person could always call the planning and building divisions if it's for a building permit and ask where the permit is in the process.
Mhm.
And the same for a planning act application as well. Okay,
Yep.
but there's no electronic platform that we have at the city that allows for tracking of applications. The other thing too is that there are times when these applications are, sensitive. If it's a planning act application that requires a rezoning or a minor variance, there is a public process. For a building permit application, there isn't a public process. The only comment I can make is, pick up the phone and call the city, call us. We'll be able to tell you where we're at. Esa, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and as a manager, as a chief building official, I have that concern myself. Sometimes I don't know what's going on with the permit in the system. City of Sudbury actually has a department specifically designed for that. They had at one time 6 people in this department that was their job, was to track every permit. Where is it? Is it over at Public Works? Is it in engineering? Where is it? We need to know. And they would track it and keep a firm handle on things. We don't have that luxury here at the city. I wish we could, but yeah, as Cindy said, I mean, whatever the project is, feel free to call. That's part of what I do too. I get those calls too, whether people are complaining that, hey, I applied 3 weeks ago, what's going on? And the thing is too, is that when we go through a plans review in my department, typically, our plans examiners, myself, any of our inspectors, whoever reviewing the project, it's our duty to get in touch with the individual right away to say, this is what we're missing. Can you please get this in here for us, right? So, and that's important because basically my building code act says that as a chief building official, I am supposed to respond within 48 hours, 2 days, to any person applying for anything to tell them why you're not getting a permit. Well, that's not really reality, but that's what the code says. But we do strive to get the information out there. That's a good, valid concern.
It sounds like a lot of the concerns are coming, or in my mind, are being factored around the issue of complete applications.
Yes.
Once,
Mhm.
once you have that complete application, you're bound by a timeline.
Yeah.
Is there any way for a member to go and see if their application is complete or not, or if there's?
Well, if for a planning act application, if a member comes in, we will review it. And if the information is not all there and there's no site plan, then we advise them that this application is incomplete. This is the information that you need to go and get. This is the information that we've got on file that we can maybe provide to you to help you get a complete application. But that's something that we do. That's why that pre-consultation is such an important aspect of this process. And there's no mechanism for the public to, or for an applicant to go into the city's website to see where their application is. And I think that's what the question was alluding to. Yeah, no, so it's basically pick up the phone and call or come in, like as Esa alluded to. It's not just for building permits, it's not just the building department that signs off on building permits, but it's also planning and engineering.
Okay, what formal processes are in place to collect and act on feedback from stakeholders, such as businesses and developers, to continuously improve the building and planning services? So do you have a compliment box or a complaint box?
We don't, but if there are any issues that arise, I would suggest the business community in speaking with the CAO and I know the CAO and the mayor meet with the chamber monthly. So if there are any issues that arise that need to be resolved between planning and building or with planning and building, or if there are any concerns, I would suggest that those concerns be raised at those meetings.
Okay.
And then they can be, brought forward to the department head and who can address the concerns.
Okay. How does the department ensure that businesses are provided with clear, upfront information about all requirements and documentation needed to avoid project delays due to incomplete submissions?
Well, pre-consultation.
Pre-consultation. 2 words. Yeah.
There's one thing that I'd like to stress with the members that, members if you're going to be developing as well, there are certain items that are required in applications. So come to the city, we'll sit down with you, we'll go through what is required. And then, we give that information to the applicant, but there's also an onus on the applicant to make sure that all the required information is provided. And if it seems that the application is a bit more, involves a bit more information than what the applicant has or is able to provide or doesn't have the opportunity to, or doesn't know where to go and get the information, then we would recommend bringing in a professional, like hire a professional to assist as well, a consultant.
What would you say your adoption rate for the pre-consultation process is? As far as how many permits are issued versus how many go through the process?
So the pre-consultation process is in place for every Planning Act application that comes through the City of Timmins. It was mandated under the Planning Act, but municipalities now have the option to request pre-consultation, and we still do. So if there was a developer that was coming in and wanted to develop, and I'm going to use our McBride subdivision, the first step would be to hold a pre-consultation meeting with that developer, that business owner.
Okay.
So that business owner knows what's required. That is the first step. First and foremost, and even with building permits, Esa can attest to this. If you're thinking about doing something, come into the city and have a conversation with the building division to see what's required. for a complete application in terms of a building permit. There may be other approvals that are required. There may be a minor variance that's needed. The property may be within the surface water protection area. The property may be needed to be serviced by a sewage system, so the porcupine health unit may be involved. That's why we always say pre-consult, come in, have a chat with us.
Given the challenges small business face with navigating the building and planning process, what specific resources or assistance programs are available to help these businesses complete their application successfully?
Well, I think we've answered that one, pre-consultation. If, we're there to help facilitate, small businesses move through the process. If it's a larger business and there's, additional information that's required that the applicant doesn't really understand the process, or has difficulty acquiring information. And I'm going to use the example of a geotechnical report. Those are specific reports that need to be done by professionals. So that would be an instance where the business would have to hire a professional to complete that report.
So aside from the pre-consultation process, what specific measures are being implemented to reduce delays and improve the efficiency of the approval process, particularly for businesses trying to meet critical deadlines?
So as Esa and I both mentioned, we have deadlines as well that are imposed through legislation. But those deadlines can only be met if we have complete applications. So again, pre-consultation is the first step, making sure that your business or business members know what is required on the application to get it through the process within those legislative timelines. So, if there's two things I can't stress enough, is pre-consultation and a complete application. Those are the two things that are really, really important to assist us in getting to yes faster.
And your first slide was communication. That's
Exactly.
communicate, whether it's through email, through phone calls, whatever. Communicate.
Okay, and finally, any other piece of advice that you'd offer to a business as they prepare to start a project?
If it's a new business, I would definitely recommend pre-consultation. I mean, if it's a new business in terms of having to build a new structure, definitely that planning and building will be involved somewhere in the process. If it's a new business that's moving into, say, an existing structure downtown and there are no renovations that are required, they will require a business license, but you've already touched on the fact that there will hopefully be a session with the licensing department at the city. So I don't want to touch on what is required for a business license, except the fact that planning and building will need to sign off on that, but they do have an application process as well. So business licenses are required for businesses within the city of Timmins.
And it looks like a question came up in the chat.
We do. So for consultations, if 10 businesses and 10 private homeowners are requesting a consultation, what's the timeline in business days? What would we expect to see if you get that influx of applications?
So if it's commercial and industrial, it's basically whoever comes in the door first, and availability as well, because there are times when the business owner is not available, when staff are available, and it's a management issue on our part to get those businesses or get that business and our city staff all in the same room together. So timing, that's one issue. For a residential home, I mean, we can talk to folks right at the counter. It's, you know, it all depends on the project as well and the scope of the project, the size of the project. So. I don't know, Ashley, if you have anything.
Yeah, it's not to put timelines on pre-consultation meetings, but typically we schedule them for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, depending on magnitude of the project. So it's quite common that we might do 3 or 4 in a day. We've done it in the past. So like I say, that's exactly what we do is we try to schedule first around the proponent schedule. When can you make yourself available? If you're going to bring a consultant in, when can we get the consultants in? And then we'll do our part to get all the departments in.
Mhm.
And basically with the city too, is we have a pretty good backup plan as well. It's not just one person each department. We always make sure we get somebody in there, right? So.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. We have another question. Um, if if you have a building that you want to buy and it is out of date for the building code, do you have to bring it up to code before you can move in and do a gut job? For example, electrical, plumbing. What would that look like?
So first of all, if you're not changing the use of the building, so let's say downtown, it's an old store, a mercantile use. And you plan on just moving into it and just basically changing the sign on the wall and take over what was there before. You are not mandated to do anything to upgrade it. The building code basically gets into upgrading depending on the nature of the project. Part 11 deals with buildings that are 5 years and older. I don't want to get too much into that because I could spend a week talking about part 11, but again, if it's just deemed to be a basic renovation, which may even just include painting and carpeting and whatever else, right? Some interior finishes. Similar to what we did here. This was basically, it's beautifully done. This is what my building code would have called this a basic renovation. So you didn't have to bring this building up to code. Electrical, again, we don't deal with electrical. Electrical Safety Authority does. That's another, other jurisdiction you have to deal with. Unless they deemed the building to have unsafe wiring, some of them do, then they may tell you to upgrade your wiring, but we certainly wouldn't. So again, I get a ton of questions every year from people that are just thinking of buying a building, and I'll talk to them or deal through email exactly what we're dealing with right now. Just everything's on a case by case basis. Depends on how much you're willing to put forth into the building, to either renovate it or just move in. We deal with a lot of change of use permits. Change of use, you can actually change the use of the building, meaning you've taken it, let's say, from a store to an office building. You may not even have to do any work, but to make it legit under the building code, you still need a permit, and we would do a permit without any construction. And there's a flat fee of like $135, I think it is, so it's not a big deal.
So Esa, to add to that, what if you wanted to extend that building to have more room, like a warehouse or storage?
If you're extending it, you meaning actually constructing an addition to extend it?
Correct. I believe that's what they're asking.
Then you're into planning, first of all. You've got to look at issues of setbacks,
Zoning.
zoning, obviously, and lot coverage and whatnot. So then
Parking
that's,
requirements.
so now you've got the two different departments. Yeah, parking requirements may or may not be applicable. So,
So that's where that whole idea of pre-consultation, come in and see us would.
Yeah. And a lot of times if somebody just calls me or emails me, I'll just say, hey, can you just give me a sketch? Don't go hire an architect or an engineer. Just give me a sketch, conceptual, tell me what you plan on doing, what you think you're going to do, and then we can base it from there. Like I say, we are here to help.
I don't see any other questions from my end. Maybe a last call if anyone would like to put their hand up or unmute.
I do have one quick question. Sorry, I was trying to type it, but I couldn't get it out fast enough. My name's Candace Larson. I'm with One Bowl Housing Corporation. We currently have a few modular home plans that different individuals in Timmins are looking to utilize, either for business or for actual residential usage. We're trying to figure out what would be the best way of eliminating barriers down the line. So wondering if that pre-consultation would be valuable at this point in time for us to bring forward the plans that we have and get feedback on them.
So, do you actually have a piece of property where these homes are going to be constructed? Or do
Currently,
you
there
just,
are individuals within the community that do, but what we're seeing is that with modular, normally the issue that communities are having, we saw it in Chapleau where we just built 5 homes. The city itself or the township itself had not had to evaluate that type of modular in the past. So the timelines ended up being exceptionally longer than they would have been normally. It created a lot more barriers. So we're trying to see as a business how we can get to a point with Timmins itself where there's at least that beginning understanding of the technology and the systems so that as individuals come forward to actually get their permits over the next few months, that they're not seeing those increased timelines because of modular.
So Candace, I can tell you from my perspective, and this is what the government is pushing for.
Yeah.
Provincial government, this is another concept of affordable housing.
Mhm.
Of course, we would fully support it. Now, if you're dealing with a modular home, well, that's one part of that's one piece of the puzzle where you have to meet what they call a CSA Z240 standard. That means that has been built in a factory.
Yep.
It's been certified, inspected, and when you apply for a building permit, our only concerns basically is where is it sitting on the property? Are you putting a foundation? Right, and you hook up your plumbing, and that's about it. Now,
So
there's
our
also-
modular, sorry, I'll pop in, our modular is actually fully constructed on site. So our panels are
Yeah.
made in factory, but everything's actually fully built on site. So we would still have inspectors coming through during
Yeah.
the construction process as well.
I was just about to dive into that portion. So the ministry is also pushing that as well. The modular homes that could have even been constructed in Chapleau and hauled into Timmins. And then I, as a building official, would say, okay, well, I need the inspection reports from the inspector in Chapleau who inspected this. And all I'm going to do is issue the permit, put it through planning, and Bob's your uncle, you have a permit. That's what, we've never dealt with that yet.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's really becoming common in Southern Ontario yet, but that's another affordable housing solution that the government has come up with. So, yeah, I mean, quite honestly, yeah, be prepared. You're gonna start seeing those. You're gonna start seeing, obviously, the tiny homes. Cindy and I both know, we talk about that. I joke with it, but I reiterated my position on, can somebody please define, give me the definition of an affordable home in today's society, in today's world? When we know construction costs are anywhere between $300 to $450 a square foot to build a home. Is that affordable? Of course not. Not in my world anyway. So, yeah, I think the modular homes, and that also stretches out to modular buildings. Commercial buildings, I should say. It's new, it's a new concept. We haven't seen it here in Northern Ontario, but you say in Chapleau, they did 4 of them?
We have 5 actually, and we're in the construction process right now of 18 additional units up in Attawapiskat, Fort Albany and Cache. But so just to summarize, what I'm hearing then is that it wouldn't be beneficial from a business standpoint to come forward right now with everything that we have if there isn't a local Timmins client who is going to apply for their permits within the next few months. It would be more beneficial for us to hold on to all of that information, wait for somebody to actually go forward with that permitting process to then have the municipality look through all of that.
Yeah, I think you're correct on that, because there's definitely gonna be a few aches and pains going, wait, it's a new concept. But we certainly will welcome it. I mean, this is what the government wants. And we as building officials have been kind of asking the government too for a little further direction as well. Because so a company comes into Timmins, builds 25 modular homes. I bring my guys in there to inspect these things. And then they pick these things up and haul them off to Chapleau. Well, what are we benefiting from this? It's time and manpower. And so do we charge a fee to inspect? Even though
I
it's
think
not.
you're misunderstanding the type of technology we're talking about. Because we aren't drag and drop modular, so our
Okay.
whole, yeah, so.
Yeah, it's all
But yeah, our piece is
I'm
not
talking
at
about
all.
ones that, okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking about
Nothing
ones that
gets
actually
hauled
built it,
anywhere, so it's all built actually on site, and it's all about using local
Yep.
community members and keeping that local, so, okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Is there any way she could go through a mock permitting process with a fake lot, just to go through the process to have some?
And I think that's kind of what I'm kind of
Yeah,
gearing my question
that might be a
towards,
good idea,
because
yeah.
a big barrier that we have is if someone wants to purchase a home, current modular solutions that have already been used in Timmins are drag and drop modular, which means that that would be the path of least resistance for individuals looking to use modular. What we're looking to do is say, okay, we have a different type of modular that we know can better benefit this community. If I can get us as far through that early learning curve as possible with the municipality prior to a client going forward with any of their permitting process, then we will have a better chance as Timmins as a whole in having individuals select this capacity building housing solution as opposed to different ones. So if there is ever a consideration of being able to bring this forward and have even just a preliminary look at it, then I could at least have a few extra months of if your team says, well, we need more information on this, this, and this, and we'd like to look at extensive testing, I can pivot quickly and do all of that testing prior to a client coming forward to you.
Yeah, I think something we could definitely look at.
Well, but one caveat I would just like to make is that every residential lot in the city of Timmins is different. So we would have to look from a planning perspective as to where these homes would be developed. So that's just one thing I'd just like to bring forward. Because of setbacks, setbacks might be an issue, you know, the zoning might be well, first of all, the zoning, we would have to look at the zoning and then look at all of the provisions that are in the zoning bylaw as well. So, and I said, like, every lot is different within the city, so one lot is not the same as the next. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
Might be worthwhile still going through a somewhat of a mock, and then you, at least you know the provisions, right? So for this specific lot, you have this setback, you have this lot coverage, you have, say it's in residential zoning already, well, here's your next step, right? Like maybe. Cause like you said, it is coming down the pipe, right? So it'd be nice to kind of have a little bit of a, knowledge base,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. I think we have one more question from Savvy.
We do. Sabby, did you want to unmute or did you want me to ask your question?
I can unmute, but the question I asked in the chat is separate. I could start with that if you wish.
Please go ahead.
So as a follow-up to the question that was asked earlier about buying a building, Esa, I just wanted to confirm that one of the steps we could do is to get any existing concerns the city has about that particular building, you know, before one considers making an offer for it.
Yeah, we got real estate agents contact us from time to time saying, well, we're thinking, my client wants to purchase this building and wants to convert it to this use or that use. Yeah, we would certainly at least give some general information on, ooh, okay, well, this is what you might want to look at before you go ahead and purchase it. We have no problem with that. We're not consultants, so we can't go in and take a look at a building and say, well, this is what you're gonna have to do. But we can certainly go through the permit records, get the history of the building. Because maybe the building has been converted 5 times over. A lot of some of these buildings downtown have been from one use to another. But yeah, no, like I say, we certainly wouldn't have an issue with that.
Okay, so my next question, as a follow-up to the question that was there about the modular homes. I'm assuming that if the modular home is made by a modular home manufacturer and meets all the appropriate standards, for Timmins, the zone 2 requirements, would there be any further requirements other than getting a building permit to install the home?
Just
So
your electrical safety authority, but again, if it's just a hookup, basically. Thing with servicing, obviously. But for the actual inspection, Savvy, no, the only thing we might inspect is possibly if you're gonna put a set of stairs or something to get into it. It's really about it on our end, and we go in and just test the life safety device, smoke alarms, whatnot, to make sure that they're operational. And that's about as far as it goes.
from a planning perspective, obviously, we would have to review where these homes are being installed and to determine whether or not if the zoning is appropriate. So
Yes,
that-
indeed, there would be obviously for our existing modular home park on Pine Street South. So,
Yep.
So a follow-up to that is, that we have recently got some evictions on some homes, and these homes, they're not structurally safe or livable at this point. So I just wanted to know that as far as getting a demolition permit for them is concerned, are there any guidelines other than the fact that we have to get clearance from the gas company and hydro before doing the demolition?
No, that's basically, like, as you pointed out, you've got to contact all the various utilities, hydro, gas, phone, cable, whoever else, if everything's disconnected. If it's gonna be a complete demolition, it's quite a simple process for us, so.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much, Esa and Cindy, appreciate that.
Okay, so perfect. That puts us right on time. So I appreciate the title of your presentation, getting to yes. I often use that philosophy in my own business is finding a way to yes, right? You just kind of want to have that in the back of your mind. You always want to try and find your way to yes. So I appreciate the title. Thank you for that. And thank you for the great discussion today. And thank you to Cindy and Esa for providing further insight into the city's planning and building processes. Just a reminder of some upcoming chamber events. Tomorrow today we are hosting Straub, CEO of Wailu at the Donny Club for our first State of the Mining event and in our new chamber year. Tickets can be purchased through our website. I don't know if that's available anymore as of today. Small Business Week is Monday, October 21st to Friday, October 25th. The Chamber and several community partners will be hosting several events and sessions to celebrate small businesses throughout the city. Those details will be in your inbox and on our website. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, and there are a few seats available for Wailu. Thank you, Cindy and Esa. Enjoy your day,
You're welcome.
everyone.
Thank you.
You guys.